Hello, welcome to Ohanga. Today we are going to introduce you to Michelle. Michelle is a ceramicist in Rhode Island. She is part of the leadership team of the Foundry Artists Association. She creates absolutely beautiful ceramics, tiny bowls, tumblers, shot cups, and more. In this video, Subham will be visiting her in her studio, and Michelle will show us her creation process. Okay, let's get started.
Weighing clay right now for teeny bowls. I weigh out a chunk of clay that is anywhere between 7.5 ounces of clay and 8 ounces of clay. If I start with the same amount, as close to the same amount every time, I can get a good consistent size bowl each time I throw. Sometimes it's a little under. Just add until I get the right amount. I always know before I start throwing what I'm making, how many I'm making, so that I know exactly what I need to prepare for each throwing set. It's just a wire tool. It broke recently, so it should have another loop on the end. Yeah, it's exactly like that. You could also, if you didn't have one of these, you could use dental floss. With a lump of clay, and then you 2 minutes later have a bowl. So the first thing to do when creating a bowl is get your wheel head a little bit damp so that your clay will adhere to the wheel head. I don't throw it down. A lot of people throw it down, but it tends to not be centered. So if you place it down and just press it in, you get a better job of centering it at the beginning. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just centering the clay, rising it up and pushing it back down, and try to get all the clay particles moving in the same direction and perfectly centered on the wheel head. I can usually feel when it's off. I also have a mirror in front of me right here that I can see what it's really doing without having to look on the side and bend too much. So the next thing you do is open up the middle. So you just find the center with your fingertip and slowly press down. But not all the way, because you want a bowl, not a planter. Just start opening up that bottom a little bit. And always compressing the rim so that that clay doesn't rise up and get wobbly. Take a little water out first. Okay, so now it's about compressing that bottom to again make sure all those clay particles are all lined up together. And not doing this results in S cracks in the bottom of your pieces and ruins your piece. So this is a boring yet incredibly important part of the job. All right, so now adding a little bit more water, it's time to pull the walls up. So these bowls I do usually in 2 pulls. And after the first one, I just take a little clay off that bottom edge that I know I don't need. I'll have to trim it off later. I can take it off now. It's easier to just take it off now. Okay. In the second pull, I'm now opening up a little bit more and just redefining that shape on the inside of the bowl. I'm checking in the mirror again to see what it's looking like. You always want the water out of the bottom of the piece. Water is the enemy at this point. It will weaken that bottom and again create cracks. I'm just pressing down one more time. So again, one more redefining of that inside shape. Because at this point, that's it for the inside shape. The outside shape can be trimmed and remove some clay, but the inside you can't change that once it's done. And that's it for the teeny bowl. That's done. So this part of the process is called trimming, and it is a way to make the outside of the bowl similar to the shape of the inside of the bowl, and also to create the foot on the bottom of the piece, to give it some lift when it comes off the table and not feel so heavy and stodgy. So the goal is to just slowly and gently pull some clay away. Flexible rubber rib just helps smooth out any trimming lines that might be in there. I even use teeny bowls when I'm working. So once they are bisque fired, they're no longer fragile. They have some ceramic qualities to them. They won't break immediately, but they're still porous right now, so they'll still absorb water. They're not quite ceramic yet, so they need to be glazed. So the first thing that I do when I'm glazing is wax the bottom. So wax is used anywhere you don't want glaze to go. You don't have to wax. You could glaze and then clean up the area, but I find that it just wastes glaze when you do it that way, and I can never get a really good crisp glaze line when I do it like that. It's a water-based wax, so it dissolves in just soap and water, which is perfect. Except on a piece like that, it stays forever. These are all my glazes down here. They're in powder form. That it comes to me, all the raw chemicals are in powder form, and then I hydrate them with water and sieve it so that all of the materials are super fine, and then it turns into this liquid, kind of like milkshake consistency, or really thin, watery milkshake consistency. When it goes onto the piece, because it's still porous, it'll absorb the water and eventually completely dry out, and then it's left with a powder coating basically on the bowl, and then when it's fired, then that turns into the finished glaze. It is a lot of up and down and lifting, and yeah. So for these, I just fill the insides first, right to the top. So I'm left with a little drip there, and I don't want that to be on the outside of my piece. So you just clean it up. Goes away with just a little bit of water and a sponge. Look like they actually come out. So this is the color. This is what I call sand. This is what it will fire to. The color is completely different.
Wow.
Yeah. So you gotta know what you're getting yourself into. I know, because these are tried and true glaze recipes, exactly what color I'm gonna get out of them. Every once in a while there might be a little bit of variation here and there. There shouldn't be, but sometimes there's a little bit. But I know that my blue is gonna be my blue, my black's gonna be my black, my sand's gonna be that. Because you follow the recipe, it's just like baking. So for the outside, it's just, you dip it straight down and in. What ends up happening is it creates a little airlock in here so that it doesn't go into the full bowl. That's why you have to go straight down. If you go in this way, no airlock. This way, airlock.
Really? Wow.
That creates that little nice rim and edge. You want to make sure that those little drips that are happening kind of dry up a little bit before you tip it back. So when it comes out of the kiln, they are ready for decals.
Do you make your decals yourself, meaning these are your designs?
I do. So a lot of them are photographs that either I've taken or my husband's taken or friends have taken. This guy is a photograph that my husband took. He's an architect. It's his favorite building.
So this way you can make it completely custom.
So I can make it
whatever
completely
somebody wants.
custom. I can do whatever you want. I can take a photo of your house and put it on a bowl, your dog and put it on a bowl. I can take a photo of you. Okay, so it just goes right into water. And after a minute or so, that backing sort of pulls away from the film that is on top of it where it's actually printed. So the film burns away in the firing, all the chemicals burn away except for the iron oxide. That ends up embedded into the clay or the glaze that when it goes through its third firing, it doesn't remelt, it just softens it enough to accept the image, and then the image is now a permanent part of the piece. So after it goes down, you just get out any water or air bubbles that might be in there. And make sure it adheres. Any spot that doesn't adhere to the bowl will just burn away into the atmosphere. Feel it starting to give. Just sort of now it'll slide right around that paper. It's ready for firing. And then when it's done, it'll look like that. So it ends up with that sepia tone versus being that rich black. So I'm working on these new wall pieces. I've never tried these before, so they're one fully formed sort of drone piece with a little notch cut out for the nail in the back. It just sort of opened itself up to feel very landscapey. This one is going to be for me, there will be an octopus in it. This is my child one. But I have a few more that I'm working on that just allowed for this really moody, kind of dark, interesting landscape, which would be perfect for the lighthouses to get incorporated into it, or some of the other buildings, the Providence themed buildings. So I'm excited to get these guys finished and see how they turn out.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.